everyone, and welcome to What's the News. This is a new segment of I Am Beautiful we're introducing as a way to bring clarity in a time of noise because it's so easy to read a headline and form an opinion and then choose to hate what you don't truly understand. So, we're going to be slowing things down and talking about what's really going on, real context, honest conversation with a little bit of history thrown in. Now, I'm not here to tell you what to think. However, I will tell you what I see, what I've learned, and a lot of what is left unsaid. We will be releasing Kolayom Revi'i, and we will be reviewing the previous week. We are not breaking news. We are here to understand what's going on in the world and not just react to it. So let's dive in. So, of course, everyone is talking about this whole Venezuela thing. I would like to share if we think the Venezuela action has nothing to do with everything cropping up in Iran, we may be missing the mark a little. Now, to really understand the depth of what happened in Venezuela, we need to get through a little bit of the history. So, a lot of people are upset because Trump ordered the president of Venezuela to be captured, maybe even kidnapped, you may prefer to call it. And we're not going to discuss whether or not we like what he did. It happened. Maybe it was right, and maybe it was wrong. But maybe at the end of this, we will have a new perspective. So we can't just start with Maduro. We have to start with his predecessor, Hugo Chavez, who became the president of Venezuela in the late 90s. He ran on what most of us hear nowadays, right? The fact that he's a man of the people, for the people, he wants to bring wealth back to the people and make sure that the people are okay. Using language like, I'm not a Marxist, but I'm not anti Marxist, and I'm not a communist, but I'm not anti communist. Ambiguity creates confusion. Confusion creates chaos. And in chaos, non Marxists come in and create a new order during a 14-year presidential reign. Anyways, corruption ensued, and by the time Chavez died, somewhere around 1.5 million people had already fled Venezuela. One note: before he died, he ensured a very strong relationship with Iran. So we're talking about early 2000s people. This is a relationship years in the making. And why did they become close? The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Anyways, Maduro ends up being narrowly voted into office a few months later. And shortly thereafter, he creates this vice ministry of supreme happiness. So let's take a pause for a moment, people. The more you outsource your feelings to other people, things, agencies, control systems, the more they will take advantage of you. Your feelings are your problem. Back to Venezuela. Throughout Maduro's 13-year presidency, there were disappearances of political opposers, delays in verification processes, changing election dates, and many other violations of rights. All in all, around 8 million people fled Venezuela during Maduro's 13-year presidency. On top of the fact that there is much evidence that the most recent election this past year was stolen. Iran and Venezuela are in bed for oil, projects, and defense. Venezuela was Iran's foot in the door to making its way through South America. As we've discussed, neither Iran nor Venezuela like the US, arguably the West in general. And so, what better way to attack the US than from below? Okay, so you may or may not know, before the 1970s, the imperial state of Iran was flourishing. It was quite westernized. However, in the late 70s, Iran was taken over and turned into the Islamic Republic of Iran. And they have repeatedly stated that they seek the annihilation of Israel and the US and the West. So we fast forward to the 21st century, just before the new year, protests started in Iran. Just after the new year, Maduro is captured in Venezuela. Protests continue in Iran. This past week, a predecessor of the Shah of the Imperial State of Iran has been making headlines claiming he's been training all his life to serve his nation. Protesters are being slaughtered by the state run military. The government shut down the internet all over the country. Fortunately, Mr. Musk came to the rescue with his Starlink. Now, in my opinion, Venezuela was a checkmate for Iran. This past week, U.S. military ships have been moving towards the Middle East. This past year, we remember, Iran's military and nuclear sites were significantly damaged. Now, people may say, well, if Iran wants nuclear bombs, let them have nuclear bombs. And to you, I would say, do you really think it's smart to give nuclear weapons to a group of people who has suppressed the democratic election of its supreme leaders for the past 47 years? In Iran, $1 is currently equal to around 1 million of their local currency. We can't even begin to comprehend that level of inflation here. Their government also allowed the capital of their country to literally run out of water. Some would argue that we were gracious with Iran when we bombed their nuclear facilities and military infrastructure. But what was their response? To bomb civilians living peacefully in their apartments. But they didn't attack the United States. They attacked Israel. What most people in the West don't understand about the Middle East is that there are a lot of bullies running around. Bullies attack people they perceive to be weaker than them. Bullies don't give you choice. Bullies want you to feel like you have no control. Bullies need to be put in their place or they don't learn the lesson. Now, of course, many people would say, well, Israel is doing the bullying. We all know that David beat Goliath, but was he a bully? Or did he have the courage to stand in his principles, protect what was his, and face his opposer? So again, I say, checkmate, Iran. We know they're on notice. They know they're on notice. I'm not a future teller, but I would say for sure before Pesach, and I think likely before Purim. Tevet is the container of light, and Shavat is the light beginning to rise. So, what other news is going on in this world? We all know that Mamdani was sworn in as the mayor of New York City. Apparently, he and Steven Spielberg broke bread, exchanged energy recently. Take that as you may. I get wanting to give people another chance or wanting to see the good in people, kind of, certain circumstances. But I guess we'll just have to see how this one plays out. If you happen to be Jewish and you voted for Mamdani, I hope that he's all that you wished he would be. This past week, there was a video, and we'll play it for you here. If you can't see it, it's the middle of New York, sounding like you're standing in the middle of Iran. There are prayer calls playing over the loudspeakers in a city in New York circa 2026. I don't even remember the last time I heard a church bell ringing in a city. Maybe in Italy 10 years ago, but in America, I do not recall. However, in the streets of New York, we now have the Islamist prayer call. I thought that we didn't want religion in our faces. Isn't that why our parents complained about praying in schools? Isn't that why people complained about Christianity having an interlacing within our society? But it's okay that 5 times a day there will be an Islamic prayer call radiating through an entire city in New York. And you are upset that your child was being taught how to say grace and to be grateful for their food before a meal? Seems like we might have gotten a little bamboozled by someone. Also, in New York, outside of a synagogue, there were protesters shouting, "We support Hamas here." This wasn't standing outside of City Hall. This wasn't standing outside of the governor's mansion. It wasn't even standing in the middle of Times Square. And for anyone who claims freedom of speech, this was deliberately done in front of a synagogue. This was a threat, and threatening words are punishable by law. Here's the clip. Now, I would like to believe that most people who claim they support Hamas have not actually seen footage of what happened on October 7th. But in case you have, and in case you too claim to support Hamas, I would just like to confirm you support breaking into someone's home, tying up a mom, dad, daughter, and son, cutting off children's fingers as the parents watch, and then gouging out a parent's eyes with a spoon while the children watch? You support ripping a woman's clothes off and raping her with 3 of your buds, and then after chopping off her breasts, juggling them? You support walking into a home, seeing a pregnant woman, and deciding, maybe it would be a good idea to slice open her stomach and pop the baby in the oven. That might be interesting. You support standing over a man who is still alive, taking a shovel and slamming it into his neck until his head is severed from his body. The problem isn't merely that most people have no idea what they're co-signing. The problem is that, from what I've observed, people who align with these movements tend to be ashamed of themselves. They feel outcasted by their families, friends, and or society in some way. And because they have absolutely zero responsibility for their emotions, they unhealthily attach to another group of people who screams loud and claims to be just as outcast, left out, and has everybody against them. There are people laced in these groups who have seen the footage, who absolutely know exactly what happened on October 7th, and those people are sociopaths. The rest of you are short sighted and foolhardy. In other news, there's a Jewish business that could use your support. Bread's Bakery, a local bakery with several locations around New York, is dealing with some employees who applied to work for a Jewish business, and now they're upset that the business that they work for is Jewish. Doesn't quite make sense to me, but what did we say before? Short-sighted and foolhardy. In the old days, if you didn't like your employer, or you didn't agree with them, or you just didn't feel like being there anymore, you would quit. But that's not how a lot of people behave today. They want to stay and make your life a living hell. And it makes me wonder, like, imagine if you use that same time plotting against people to make something of yourself, to build a life that you actually want. What you're doing is bullying. Bullies are losers. You could choose to go on about your life and find something that brings you joy. But instead, you want to be mad that you have to bake a cookie that's in the shape of a menorah? As a Baal Shem Tov says, pray for your enemies. They are messengers from Hashem. Messengers of what? They're messengers letting us know that we're not victims. Sometimes you just need better discernment. In other news, Tim Walz, the guy that could have possibly been the vice president of the United States, was seen replacing the flag of Minnesota with the flag of Somalia. Check it out here.
All right, ready. Whoa, wait a minute. There, that's better.
Now, this guy is as weird as dipping a pickle into Trix yogurt, but this is mind blowing. He's like a character from Stephen King. And that's just the icing. The guy is in the middle of a fraud scandal that some are saying is upwards of 9 billion with a B dollars. Investigations are still pending now. It would be great if we lived in a world where people were honest and had pure intentions and didn't try to get anything over on anyone. But let's break this down a little bit. Kamala is still probably a little embarrassed by her loss. It behooves her to have an opportunity to say, well, see, this is why I didn't win because of him. Hide out for the next year or so, and then creep back up just as we have the 2028 election cycle coming back. Might I say, she may make a wise play as a VP for Pretty Boy Newsom. But what do I know? In Britain, apparently they're considering ending circumcision because it's a form of child abuse. To hell with hygiene, lower transmission of infections, less risk of cancer, less problems with your disco stick. It's now abuse. These people have absolutely lost their minds. So we continue heading east. So the UAE, for those who may not know what it is, the United Arab Emirates, another breakdown. It's where Dubai and Abu Dhabi are. The UAE has decided to cut funding for their citizens who want to go to the United Kingdom to study. Why? Because in the United Kingdom, they refuse to call the Muslim Brotherhood a terrorist organization. Why does this matter? The UAE itself is a Muslim state. Now, of course, there are different types of Islam, and within those different types, there have stemmed radical factions. And you might say, well, it's a minority. As of 2020, there were around 2 billion Muslims in the world. We're now 6 years later, and they have a lot of babies, so we can deduce that that number has grown. Even a minority of 1% is 20 million people. That's greater than the population of the greater Los Angeles area. 20 million people can do a lot of not good stuff. Is it not a strong message, a wake-up call, or slap in the face that a Muslim country doesn't want its people going to a technically non-Muslim country because that non-Muslim country doesn't call the Muslim Brotherhood a terrorist organization? What does the UAE know about the Muslim Brotherhood that the UK is choosing to overlook? I also find it interesting that none of the Arab countries, including the UAE, care to welcome the Palestinians into their countries. What is it that the Arab countries know about the Palestinians that we choose to overlook? If the Palestinians are truly these people who are innocent and haven't done anything wrong and have just had the worst cards in life dealt to them, why is it that their Arab brethren won't accept them? So let's have a look at the history. Jordan historically accepted thousands of Palestinians. They thought, just as we do, maybe if we're nice to them, maybe if we do something good, it will help them. Wishful thinking doesn't begin to cover it. After some time, the Palestinians decided that they wanted to take over Jordan, so they launched an attack on the people who graciously took them in. Unfortunately for them, they didn't win that war, and the majority of them were exiled, expelled to Lebanon. Post Jordan isn't the first tango that the Lebanese have had with the Palestinians. Lebanon also historically accepted many Palestinians. They thought, just as we do, just as the Jordanians did, maybe if we're nice to them, maybe if we do something good, it will help them. If only there was actually pie in the sky. The Palestinians yet again decided that they wanted to take over, so they launched an attack in Lebanon, and then they were kicked out again. So, what did Egypt do differently? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And Egypt wasn't going to be fooled. They had very strict controls over the Palestinians. Now, if you ask your best friend if she trusts her brother and she says, hell no, do you think that you know better than her? So again, I ask, what do these other Muslim nations know about the Palestinians that we in the West choose to overlook? Now let's get to a few things in Israel. Hamas has violated the ceasefire 3 times in one day. Now, I'm not sure how this is actually news because they violate the ceasefire, frankly, probably every day. So, I mean, that's a lot of the reason why trying to get rid of Hamas, among other things. An event hall in an Arab village was raided. Why would the big bad Israelis do something so mean to the innocent Arabs hosting a friendly event? Because there were illegal weapons. What was being done with these illegal weapons, might you ask? Well, one of these weapons happened to be a handgun. And a gentleman at this event had a toddler on his shoulders, and this toddler was playing with the handgun as they're dancing and enjoying the party. And people, of course, will say, well, there's a lot of dangerous things happening in the US with guns. And you're absolutely right. And when babies are found with guns, their parents and or the adults involved are arrested and charged. Religious women are choosing now to fulfill military service, not just in administrative and no contact roles. They're fulfilling their duty in combat roles. And most people run from a fight, or not even a fight, anything that could lead to temporary discomfort. And these young women are running headfirst into it. They serve as a great lesson for us to have courage and remember the light that we are placed here to emanate, and also to remember that we fight for the one who never loses. And lastly, Bibi is hoping that Israel will be completely independent of US aid in 10 years. Ezrat Hashem. It's about time. We hope that you enjoyed our first segment of What's the News, and we'll see you on the next one.